There's a quiet kind of torment that creeps in when someone realizes they let go of a person who didn't stay broken, not bitter, not stagnant, but instead chose to evolve. She watches you now, even if she pretends she doesn't. She sees the way you carry yourself differently, the way you've stepped into your strength, your direction, your discipline. There was a time when she thought she had you figured out. She thought you'd spiral, fall apart, or chase her to the ends of the earth. But that didn't happen. You chose a different path, not to plead or prove, but to rise. And now every step you take forward she notices, though she'd never say so. That's the cruel paradox of regret, shaped by ego. When someone lets you go thinking you'll collapse, and instead they have to witness your transformation from a distance they chose, a distance they once controlled. She checks your stories, your posts. She asks mutual friends about you in roundabout ways. And not because she wants to reconnect. No, not openly, but because some part of her is still trying to process how she underestimated your resilience. Growth, when it's genuine, doesn't have to announce itself. It shows up in your tone, in your posture, in the calm behind your eyes. And those are the things that catch her off guard, because they reveal what she didn't expect, that your value wasn't in your words or your promises, but in your ability to become what she didn't have the vision to stay for. That realization, that's what quietly haunts her. You see, regret doesn't always come in the form of apology. Sometimes it's just the prolonged silence, the sudden disappearance followed by subtle reappearances. A like here, a watch without engagement. It's the ego attempting to stay hidden while the soul aches for what it lost. That's the psychological conflict she now lives in. She can't congratulate you. She won't say she's proud of you, but she feels something, that old mixture of familiarity and loss, every time she sees how far you've come without needing her validation. It's not spite, it's not hate, it's discomfort, a kind that stems from realizing that what she once saw as predictable, maybe even boring, was actually stability, reliability, integrity, the very things she now finds lacking in her environment. Because the truth is, it's not just your success she's noticing, it's your peace, that strange quietness you've developed. You don't need to make noise to prove anything. You've found strength in the silence. And ironically, it's in that very silence that her thoughts about you grow the loudest. She may try to convince herself otherwise, that she's happy, that she made the right decision, that you were never the one. But deep down, there's this lingering doubt, a friction between what she tells herself and what she sees. And it only intensifies the more you become someone who's clearly building something meaningful. Not just on the outside, but within. Because here's the thing about watching someone evolve from afar, it's a mirror, a reflection that forces her to ask herself whether she misjudged the situation, whether she gave up too soon, whether she mistook calmness for weakness. And if there's any self-awareness in her at all, she'll feel it. She'll feel it every time she sees that you're not trying to win her back, not dropping breadcrumbs, not hanging on to the hope of closure, but instead, you're moving, living, becoming without bitterness, without resentment, just presence, purpose, clarity. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about proving anything to anyone. It's about becoming the man you were always meant to be. And ironically, it's that very choice to not stay stuck in her shadow that brings her shadow back to you. Not because she wants to ruin what you've built, but because the echo of what she left behind still lives inside her. The realization that she didn't just walk away from a man, she walked away from the kind of man who could weather a storm without falling apart, the kind of man who didn't use pain as an excuse to self-destruct, but as fuel to grow stronger. She may never say it out loud, her pride won't let her, but make no mistake, she sees you, and it hurts more than she expected. And that is precisely why you must keep going. When someone walks away thinking they're irreplaceable, they rarely expect the world to keep turning without them. That's part of the illusion. They believe their absence will echo through your life like a void that can't be filled. And maybe, for a while it does. Maybe you sit in the silence they leave behind, wondering what went wrong, trying to make sense of the pieces that don't fit anymore. That's normal, that's human. But then something happens. You begin to gather yourself piece by piece, thought by thought. You start to look at your life not through the lens of what left, but through the clarity of what remains and what can still be built. Now, she expected you to wait, not literally, but emotionally. She expected you to remain tethered to the hope that she'd come back, that one day maybe she'd see things differently and come running back to what she'd left behind. But that didn't happen. Because you, perhaps quietly at first, made a decision. You didn't announce it. You didn't make a show of it. You just started living again, more intentionally, more deliberately. And now, without ever trying to get her attention, you've done something far more powerful. You've moved on. And that unsettles her more than she'll ever admit. Because the moment you started to rebuild your life without needing her as its center, you removed her power. Not out of spite, but out of necessity. You realized that waiting for someone who isn't waiting for you is a form of self-abandonment. And the moment you stopped doing that, the moment you started showing up for yourself instead, you became someone entirely different in her eyes. She can't help but notice that you're not bitter. That's what really confuses her. See, bitterness would have made sense to her. Bitterness means you're still emotionally invested, still wounded, still stuck. But peace is a different message altogether. It says you're not angry, you're just no longer available. And that stings. Because she may not want you back, but she wanted to know she could come back. That the door would always be cracked open just enough for her ego to slip through if needed. But you didn't leave the door open. You didn't slam it either. You just quietly renovated the space and changed the locks. Not out of cruelty, but out of growth. You made the decision that your energy is no longer a space for indecision. You chose to become unavailable to the woman who treated your love like a backup plan. And that, more than anything, is what keeps you in her mind. Not as someone she wants to possess again, but as someone who reminds her of a version of herself she hasn't yet confronted, the version that ran. See, people don't miss you when you're still chasing them. They don't feel your absence when your presence is always implied. But the moment you stop showing up, the moment your life starts expanding without them, that's when they feel it. Not just the absence of attention, but the absence of access. And for someone who once took you for granted, that absence feels like a loss they never prepared for. So now she watches. Not always intentionally, sometimes it's just a moment here, a memory there, but it happens. She remembers the conversations, the stability, the way you made her feel seen, not because you were perfect, but because you showed up in ways that mattered. And now that she's out in the world looking for that again, maybe in someone else, maybe in the reflection of her own choices, she realizes that not everyone offers that kind of depth. Not everyone stays when it's inconvenient. Not everyone listens without judgment, supports without agenda, loves without manipulation. And it's in that contrast between what you were and what she's now facing that the regret starts to whisper. But ego doesn't like whispers. Ego wants control, certainty, a way to spin the story so she doesn't have to face the uncomfortable truth that she misread your value. So she won't admit it. She'll tell herself she made the right decision. She'll convince her friends she's moved on. But her silence around you isn't peace. It's protection. It's a wall she's built, not to keep you out, but to keep herself from falling into the truth of what she lost. You didn't become better to prove her wrong. You became better because you realized you were worth the investment. And now, even if she never says it, even if she never sends the message, never makes the call, she feels it. The weight of knowing she let go of someone who was never trying to impress her, just trying to love her. And the irony is, that's exactly what she misses the most. She regrets losing you, not because you begged her to come back, but because you never needed to. There's a strange thing that happens when someone walks away thinking they've made the better choice. They expect clarity, relief, a sense of freedom. But what often arrives instead is something far more unsettling, silence. And in that silence, something unexpected creeps in, curiosity. Because when she expected you to fall apart, you didn't. When she expected you to chase, you stepped back. And when she expected to be the one holding the power of choice, you quietly made your own. That's when she starts checking in, but never directly. She'll scroll through your stories, revisit old photos, ask mutual friends subtle questions, just enough to feel your presence without ever having to face the weight of your absence. This isn't about reconciliation, at least not openly. This is about control, about soothing an ego that expected permanence in your attention. She's not ready to admit she made a mistake, so instead she observes from a distance, quietly, anonymously, trying to gauge whether you've moved on, whether you've found someone else, whether you still think of her the way she's starting to think of you. And it's not just about what she sees, it's about what she doesn't. She can't read your thoughts anymore. She can't predict your next move. That uncertainty terrifies her, because in losing access to your mind, your emotions, and your world, she lost the mirror that once made her feel secure. And now, every time she peeks into your life from afar, what she's really doing is searching for herself in it. Do you still post songs that remind her of your time together? Do you still like the things she introduced you to? Do you still carry any part of her with you even after she let you go? This isn't love speaking, not yet. This is the discomfort of realizing that the man she once thought would wait forever didn't. That he stopped living in the past she walked out of and started creating a future she's no longer a part of. And it's that future, the one where you thrive, not out of spite, but out of purpose, that shakes her. Because here's the thing, people don't start missing you when you disappear. They start missing you when you become someone they no longer have access to. That's when the questions flood in. Who are you becoming without her? Is someone else laughing at your jokes, hearing your stories, making memories with you now? She wonders these things not because she wants to fix the relationship, but because her ego needs to believe she still matters, that her imprint on your life is still fresh, that maybe, just maybe, she still has a seat at the table. But you didn't leave the seat empty. You replaced it with purpose, with movement, with friends who uplift you, goals that challenge you, and a mindset that no longer waits for someone to validate your worth. And this shift, this invisible internal transformation, is what draws her in. She can't articulate it. She doesn't even understand it fully. But she feels it, and every time she checks in, she's not just looking at your life. She's confronting her own choice, a choice that once felt certain and now feels like a gamble with no guaranteed return. Still, she won't reach out, at least not directly, because to do that would mean confronting vulnerability. And vulnerability means admitting regret. And regret is something pride doesn't digest easily. So she stays quiet, watching from a safe distance, hoping to see something that proves she still has an effect on you. But what she finds instead is peace, yours. And that peace unsettles her because it tells her everything she doesn't want to believe, that you're okay, that you're growing, that your life didn't end where she left it. You didn't post to get her attention. You didn't become stronger to make her jealous. You just lived authentically, quietly, with intention. And it's that very choice, the refusal to play the game of appearances and manipulation, that now has her attention more than any desperate text or long-winded message ever could. She doesn't admit she's checking on you, but she is. And every silent visit to your page, every pause on your name in a message thread she won't send, is a silent confession she'll never say out loud. Not because she's heartless, but because she's human, caught between pride and truth, image and emotion. And in the end, it's not your absence that haunts her, it's your evolution. There comes a moment, often in solitude, when the weight of one's decisions begins to echo. It doesn't come crashing down in some dramatic, cinematic way. It's quieter than that, more subtle. And for her, it begins not with grief, but with a strange and unsettling stillness. The very stillness she once craved when she walked away. She thought it would bring peace, space, clarity. But instead, it delivers something far more ambiguous, a nagging sense that something is missing. Not something, someone. And in that space, the memories start to return. But not in the form of pain or even nostalgia. They come like flashes. The way you used to laugh at your own jokes, how you always remembered the little things she said offhandedly, how you'd protect her in small unspoken ways. These aren't memories she invited. They arrive unannounced and they linger in the quiet of the night while brushing her teeth, scrolling aimlessly on her phone, watching a movie alone, you appear not as a ghost, but as a presence, steady, real. But she won't admit it, because to do so would mean confronting what she's been avoiding all along. That the man she pushed away was, in many ways, the one who saw her most clearly. And not just saw her, stayed with her, even when she couldn't see herself. That realization doesn't come like a thunderclap. It comes slowly, like mist seeping under a door. At first she ignores it. Then she tries to rationalize it, but eventually it gets harder to deny. You see, regret is a complicated thing, especially when pride is involved. When she left, she may have genuinely believed it was for the best. Maybe she thought there was more out there, or maybe she simply needed space. But what she didn't expect, what she couldn't have predicted, was how rare it is to be truly understood, to be met with both love and strength. And as the new people come and go, each one a little less attentive, a little more self-absorbed, she starts to notice the gap, a gap you used to fill effortlessly. But she can't just turn around and say, I made a mistake. That would be too vulnerable, too risky. Because what if you've moved on? What if you don't care anymore? What if you became the very thing she didn't believe you could become, someone who no longer waits for her approval? And that's what truly frightens her. Not the idea that she lost you, but the possibility that she no longer has any hold on you. This is why she acts indifferent, why she posts as if she's living her best life, why she makes casual jokes in group chats like nothing ever happened. Because every ounce of that nonchalance is carefully constructed to protect one thing, her ego. She needs to believe she was right, that her decision made sense, that walking away was strength, not error. But deep down, the cracks are forming. And in those cracks, she's beginning to see the truth she's tried to bury. It's in the way she pauses before responding to someone who reminds her of you but never quite matches your presence. It's in the way she smiles at a compliment but immediately thinks of how you used to look at her like she was the only one in the room. It's in the silence after a night out, when she comes home, sits on the edge of her bed, and realizes that fun isn't the same as connection. And connection, real, grounded, soul-deep connection, is what you gave her. Still, she won't tell you. She can't. Because to do that would mean stripping away the armor she's built. And that armor, though heavy, gives her the illusion of control, of being unaffected. But the truth is, she is affected. She's haunted by the calm you now carry, by the maturity you've stepped into, by the undeniable reality that you're no longer waiting for her to validate your worth. She thought you'd linger. She thought your world would orbit around her absence. But instead, you healed, not perfectly, but purposefully. You didn't collapse, you rebuilt. And that evolution, that quiet strength is what unsettles her most. Because now, the version of you she left behind is no longer the man standing before the world. And while she clings to the story that she chose better, her heart whispers something different. She regrets it. But her ego won't let her say it. Not today, maybe not ever, but that doesn't make the regret any less real. In fact, it makes it more powerful because it's hidden. And the regrets we hide are the ones that eat away at us the most. And sometimes the loudest silence is the one that comes from everything left unsaid. She watches your growth from a distance now. At first, it doesn't quite register. She sees it like one might glance out the window and catch a bird in flight. Interesting, maybe even beautiful, but not entirely important. That's what she tells herself anyway. But something about it lingers longer than she expects. You weren't supposed to grow without her. You weren't supposed to look better, speak stronger, move freer. The version of you she once knew, the one who waited, who pleaded, who tried to hold everything together, is gone now. And what stands in his place is a man who has clearly learned something from pain. A man who used the silence she left behind, not as a prison, but as a forge. She won't say it out loud, that would demand a vulnerability she can't afford. But the way she looks at your social media, the way she asks mutual friends subtle questions about you, how's he been lately? It all points to one thing. She's noticing the man you've become. And it's bothering her more than she wants to admit. Because the truth, the deeper truth she won't face head on, is that she thought you'd stay small, that her absence would dim your light, not sharpen your edge. There's something deeply unsettling about realizing you underestimated someone you once had in your grasp. She didn't think you'd find a way to flourish on your own. She assumed, perhaps unconsciously, that your confidence came from her approval, that your strength was dependent on her presence. But now she sees a different picture. You're not just surviving, you're thriving. And not in a performative, attention-seeking kind of way. You've developed depth, clarity, direction. You've built something, your discipline, your self-respect, your boundaries. And you know what's really hard for her? It's not just that you're doing well, it's that you're doing well without reaching back for her. That you're becoming the kind of man she always wanted but no longer has access to. That's the sting. Because somewhere in her private thoughts, the question starts forming. Was I the one who gave up too soon? She doesn't want to answer that. So instead, she scrolls faster, avoids eye contact in conversations when your name comes up, pretends like it doesn't faze her. But it does. The more you grow, the more obvious it becomes, to both of you, that her leaving didn't break you. It built you. That doesn't mean it didn't hurt. It did, deeply. But you chose to confront the pain, not be controlled by it. And that kind of resilience, that kind of transformation is undeniable. You didn't chase temporary distractions. You didn't implode. You turned inward, faced your own darkness, and came out with something solid. You became disciplined where you used to be impulsive. You became focused where you used to be scattered. You became calm where you used to react. In short, you grew up. And now she watches that growth, and it unsettles her. Not because she wants to stop it, but because she doesn't know how to respond to it. How do you confront the reality that the person you left behind became everything you hoped they'd be without you? How do you look in the mirror and admit that maybe, just maybe, the problem wasn't just him? This is where ego steps in again, quietly but firmly. It tells her it was still the right choice, that maybe you're just putting on a show, that you'll revert, that no one really changes. But deep down, that argument grows weaker by the day. Because every new thing you do, every stride you take, every way you show up in the world, now it's evidence. Evidence that you've stepped into something real, something earned, something no longer dependent on her validation. And as she wrestles with this reality, she begins to feel something she can't quite explain. It's not just regret. It's longing mixed with confusion, pride twisted with envy. She's proud of you, but it aches. She misses what you had, but can't face what she did to lose it. She wants to reach out, but fears what she might find. That the man who once needed her no longer does. And that's the final blow. That's the wound no one sees. Because the hardest part isn't that she let you go. It's realizing that the man she sees now, the grounded, unshakable, deeply refined man, you were becoming him the whole time. She just didn't wait long enough to see it. You became the proof that some men grow strongest in silence, when no one's cheering them on, when no one's watching. And now that they are, it's clear you never needed the spotlight, you just needed the storm. She thought you'd always be there, not in some romantic, poetic sense, but in that quiet, taken for granted way that people believe the sun will rise every morning. You had become part of the scenery in her life, predictable, familiar, safe. And she mistook that safety for permanence. But what happens when permanence is replaced by absence? When the calls stop, the checking in ceases, the unspoken loyalty is no longer offered freely. She begins to feel the void, and not the dramatic kind, not the one that gets written into sad songs. It's subtle. It's the silence in places where noise used to be, the empty inbox where your name once popped up, the untagged photos, the unexplained shift in energy. That's when it starts to creep in. Regret, yes, but also a strange form of disorientation, because she realizes that you've withdrawn your presence in a way that isn't temporary. You're not sulking, you're not waiting around. You're gone, and not in a bitter, burning bridges sort of way. You've just moved on, quietly, decisively. And that, perhaps, is what unnerves her the most. She expected resistance. She expected a chase. But what she finds instead is indifference. Not cruelty, not spite, but the stillness of someone who no longer waits to be seen. And that's where her ego begins to fracture. Because ego feeds on being wanted. It thrives on attention, on proof of importance. And you're no longer offering any of that. You're no longer the one reaching out. You've taken back your power, and it's disarming to her in a way she can't articulate. The moment she notices you didn't just move, you leveled up, something in her shifts, because when she sees you smiling in that photo, when she hears about you doing well, when she senses that other people are beginning to see in you what she failed to recognize, she is forced to confront a truth that doesn't flatter her. You didn't need to prove anything. You just had to stop showing up where you were no longer valued. And in doing so, you became the mirror she didn't want to look into. Because now, every time she thinks about you, she's not only reminded of who you were, but who you became after she lost you. And that contrast, that's the part she can't undo. It's not just that she misses you, it's that she misses what you represented. The unconditional support, the steady presence, the belief in her even when she didn't believe in herself. She may pretend it didn't matter, may carry on as though she's unfazed, but the truth has a way of gnawing at the edges. She underestimated the cost of losing someone who loved her past her flaws, past her moods, past her walls. And now she's surrounded by noise, distractions, maybe new people, maybe fleeting attention, but none of it touches the place where you once stood, because presence can't be faked, and neither can absence. You're not cold, you're not punishing her, you're just done. And being done is the most powerful place you can operate from, because it's not driven by emotion, it's built on clarity. She might hear your name in a conversation and smile politely, but her mind will wander to what she used to have. And in private moments, when the masks fall and the room is quiet, the gravity of your absence will pull harder than she expects. Not because she wants to undo everything, but because she finally sees what she let go of, and it's too late to reclaim it. You're not who you were, and that's a good thing. Because you needed to be broken to understand what boundaries are. You needed to lose her to find yourself. And now that you have, her ego doesn't stand a chance against the reality that you're gone for good. Not physically, but spiritually, you no longer orbit around her. You've stepped into your own gravity. And if you're honest, you don't even blame her. She didn't know what she was doing when she let you go. Maybe she thought she was choosing freedom or something better or simply peace. But what she chose, without realizing it, was a life without you. And now she has to live with that. You, on the other hand, you're free. And that's a different kind of power altogether.